never actually thought I'd make this video, if I'm being very honest, but I feel like the story is really, really important, and I think it's maybe educational, so stick with me. So when I was 10, I was playing tic tac on an 8-foot wall, and I tripped and I fell and I fractured my skull, which then in turn caused a lot of problems. So anyway, I got woken up by my two friends picking me up, one under each arm. My cousin had ran to go and get my mum because they had seen what had happened, and when I got picked up, I was kind of really drowsy, and I remember the falling part, like now it seems like I've seen it slow motion, kind of like outside of my body. So when I got picked up, I was fine, but I was drowsy and I felt like my neck was wet, so I'd like placed my hand against my neck and looked at my hand and seen there was blood and there was like silver lines through it, and in that moment the pain dial just went from 0 to 100. Like it was almost like somebody just flicked the switch on of the pain, and the pain was horrific. So the silver lines through the blood in my hand was brain fluid, and I didn't realise obviously that's what it was. So my mum is very quickly there, she throws me in the back of the car and we go to the hospital, which is about a 10-minute drive. We get out and I started to say to my mum, like, I can't feel my legs, like I'm not, like my legs are going away from me. So anyway, she very nicely asked this guy who was, I still remember, this beautiful crisp white shirt, and he picked me up and he carried me in and he was covered in my blood. And mum had said, you know, like tried to give him money out of her purse and he just wouldn't accept it. They took me in and they'd injected me in the backside for pain relief. And so I remember at that moment, you know, family had arrived and stuff. I don't really know the timeline, but my dad was there, and I remember I couldn't see him, but I could hear him. And within that, I knew that in that moment that something wasn't right. But turns out I was blind. So I just lost the use of being able to walk, and I couldn't feel my legs, and I wasn't able to see. So I remember being blind being an odd experience. It was kind of like I was able to see, like as if it was all cloudy, but I remember the colour green being there and that being really, really poignant for some reason, and I don't know why. So anyway, I remember my family being there, but I remember having what I can only describe as an outer body experience. And I remember being above myself, looking down on myself in the bed and all the family around me, and later, you know, I kind of recounted to my mum where everybody was standing and how things were, and she said, like, there's no way that you could have known that because they tested and you couldn't see. So anyway, I was in the hospital for a number of weeks, and you know, all was fine, and the consultant said, you know, George, you could have been blind, paralysed or dead, and you know, you've been very fortunate to have none of that at the age of 10. So anyway, fast forward to about 34, 32 years of age, and I started to notice I wasn't feeling right and I didn't know how to explain it. Goes to the doctors, and the doctor's like, we hope it's this, this, this and this, and not this. And I was like, okay, and the not this thing that he didn't want it to be turned out what it was. And what that was is my body stopped producing testosterone, or was producing minimal amounts of it. So the range is between 11 and 36 is from what I understand, and they kind of want it in the 30s. That's where you should be. So I was given the injection in the backside every 12 weeks, and it was absolutely fine. Until 2 years ago, until around my 40th, I started to notice things went right, but I'm getting my hormone injections, so I'm not thinking it's that. I think it's all these other things, and eventually speak to the doctor, which is not something I do very often. And I said to the doctor, like, this is how I'm feeling, and they done tests, and they're like, oh, your hormone level's really low. So the endocrinologist that I speak to every 6 months had said, we're going to take you from 12 weekly to 10 weekly. So I was on a drug called Nebido, and then they took it from 12 weekly to 10 weekly, and that wasn't working. And so what they done was put me on another one called Sustanon, which is kind of like the king daddy of testosterone, which is they tend to give to people who are transitioning from female to male, and they're on Sustanon kind of every 4 weeks. So I was getting Sustanon every 4 weeks, it wasn't working. And then they were giving me every 3 weeks, and it wasn't working. Then I went onto this gel called Testivan, and this gel was kind of rubbed on the arm, and I was to do that, and it wasn't working. So for some reason my body isn't absorbing the testosterone. And in the end, they've then put me back onto Nebido, but they put me onto Nebido 8 weekly, and then it wasn't working. And so now they've got me on 6 weekly. So right now I'm on it 6 weekly until they figure out exactly what's kind of going on and where we're at with it. And it's caused a bit of hell. So I know that women who are going through menopause and stuff will understand the memory loss and the forgetfulness and the lack of energy and the, you know, just the emotions are very, very different, and you're very, very tired and your focus is bad. And I kind of, the running joke was that, you know, that I was losing my mind because I just couldn't remember anything. And so if I have opened a message and I go through a message and something happens and I'm distracted, it's gone. And that's it. And so there's been a few people in the last 2 years that have kind of slipped through the net, where I've maybe opened a message and something has happened and it slipped through the net and I've forgot about it. And then people message me, and sometimes they're a bit abusive because I haven't responded to them straight away. And listen, I get it and understand that. But, you know, I'm a one-man band. I run this business all on my own. I do all of it on my own. So it's kind of, it's sometimes hard. And I felt maybe it was my part to maybe speak up for people, men. There's not a lot of information out there for men who are having hormone issues, especially young men, because really, realistically, my hormones should be fine. And the last time they checked, it was 3.6. Now, bear in mind, the lowest it should be is 11, and it should be in the high 30s. And I'm 3.6, and that's me getting it every 6 weeks. So something's not working right. So they're trying to hopefully get something that will make it right. But I understand that sometimes, you know, things get through the net and I don't get everyone, and I'm not always responding. And if I do not get back to you, just send me another message. I promise you it's not intentional, because I value every single one of you. But I just thought it was really important to maybe share this story, because I think people need to understand that women don't get enough credit when they are hormonal and they are going through menopause and their hormones are changing in their body, and they're just expected to be a mum and a wife and a colleague and a worker and a family member and all that, and then go through that body change. Whereas men, we don't seem to get it the same way. It seems to be our hormone teeters away very, very, very slowly, whereas women go through this sudden shift. So I understand that, because that's what the endocrinologist says, you know, think about it in that kind of comparison, you're having those issues. So it does make you tired, it does make you lose focus, but I'd probably say the biggest thing for me is lack of energy, and the forgetfulness is probably the biggest part. But it is, you know, it has other implications as well that, you know, I just don't want to talk about, it's a bit private, but, you know, it's just something that I feel people maybe should be aware of and know and understand, and maybe this will make sense to somebody. And don't always think that maybe you should get your blood tests and always think it's one thing like me, and always put it down to being something else when it's not. So anyway, thank you for staying and listening. And if this has made sense to you, then please drop a heart in the comment.